Ladies and gentlemen, we now have pleasure in calling on Mr. Goh Chok Tong, the Minister for Health and Second Minister of Defence, to address you.
Friends and fellow citizens, it is indeed a great privilege for me to be given the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Looking back over the last 16 years, I believe we have every reason to rejoice. We have done well this year, so have our ASEAN neighbors. But doing well is not the most important thing. It is how we can continue to do well in the future that matters. The world does not stand still. Every day, there's a new crisis. If it is not Cambodia, it's Afghanistan. If it's not worry over protectionism, it is worry over energy shortage. Cambodia, Vietnamese refugees, Iran, energy shortage, inflation, Poland, all these crises affect us because we live in an interdependent world. If the air controllers in the United States go on strike, SIA is affected, because SIA cannot fly to the United States. This is how one crisis in one part of the world can affect us who can be in a totally different part of the world. Doing well in the past, therefore, is not half as important as how we are going to do in the future. And how we are going to do in the future will depend on how we are prepared to meet uncertainty. Let me give you an example of how fortunes can change very quickly. Up to the end of the last decade, that is 1980, the German economy was one of the strongest economies in the world. It was so strong that everyone was trying to invest in the strong Deutschmark, German bonds, and German equities. Today, these investors are trying to get out of Deutschmark, German bonds, and German equities. In December 1979, one US dollar fetched 1.73 Deutschmark. Today, the same US dollar can buy 2.43 Deutschmark, or 40% more. This is because Germany is in trouble. In just 2 short years, the German economy has got into trouble. It is in recession. The German economy is expected to suffer a negative growth of 1 to 1.5% this year. Many people are unemployed in Germany. More people are unemployed in Europe. In Britain alone, nearly 3 million people are unemployed. Nearly 3 million people, more than the entire population of Singapore, are unemployed in Britain. It is one reason why British youths went on the rampage in Manchester, Liverpool, London, a few days before Prince Charles' wedding. Very sad. The wanton looting, burning of cars, brutality, serve as grim reminder of our own violent riots in the 50s and the 60s. We must never allow anarchy to return to Singapore. And such a situation will return to Singapore if we do not prepare ourselves to meet an uncertain future. If more than half our population, those in the labor force, become unemployed, we will have such a situation in Singapore. So never allow such a situation to happen to Singapore. We must therefore never take things for granted. We must be a society on the move, only one direction, upwards, not horizontally or downwards. A society on the move upwards, anticipating problems, preparing solutions to these problems before they descend upon us. That is why we are restructuring the economy. Our restructuring is progressing successfully. All sectors of the economy are responding very well to the restructuring. The manufacturing sector in particular has responded very, very well. If we can continue with our good performance, by the end of this decade, we shall have a modern, thriving, sophisticated economy. We shall have better houses, better HDB flats, better parks, better recreational facilities, better hospitals, better schools, and perhaps even an MRT. But all these hopes of better housing, better hospitals, better schools, and a better quality of life will be reduced to ashes if we are not able to defend ourselves. No one is going to invest in Singapore if they believe that their investments in factories, offices, hotels cannot be protected. No one is going to build apartments, condominiums, private hospitals, more hotels, more offices, if they believe that Singapore can be easily invaded and captured. Now, these are assets which cannot be moved away from Singapore, like gold or silver, in times of troubles. So no one is going to sink in large sums of money in Singapore if they have the slightest doubt that their investments in Singapore cannot be guaranteed. So we have to impress upon everyone that Singapore and Singaporeans take defense very seriously. We have to build up this capability to defend ourselves. Building up this capability is more than buying more fighter aircrafts, ships, tanks, and missiles. The critical factor is the will, whether we have the iron will to sacrifice our lives in the defense of our country and our families. If our will is like a twig instead of like iron, our potential aggressors will know that Singapore can be picked very easily, and so would Singaporeans, so would investors, and there will be no bright, prosperous Singapore for us in the future. I have not the slightest doubt that when it comes to the crunch, Singaporeans will fight. I have not the slightest doubt that if they have to choose between deaths in the defense of their country and life as refugees, they will choose honorable deaths. The problem is not with this will to train ourselves when the young boys are in active national service. They take their training seriously. The problem is when they come out into the reserves. That is when we see them putting on weight. If you have been watching our reservists marching in the recent National Day parades, you know what I mean. Quite a few of them have put on weight. We must get them to shed off their excess baggage. They must be sharp, trim, and better fit all the time. Only then do we not have to make a choice between two awful alternatives. That is, death to fight or life as a refugee. If people assess us as having the capability and the iron will to protect this place, the chances of our being left alone increase correspondingly. To avoid having to make such a choice, we therefore have to be prepared for the worst, even whilst there's peace, and make friends, as many friends as we possibly can, and make friends with people, countries near and far. Recently, there has been a lot of talk about teamwork, about improving management-worker relationship. You have heard of the term zero defect. This is a management jargon, a colorless, non-emotive term. But behind this rather clinical jargon is a profound philosophy that makes for a successful society. And to those of you who think that I'm talking about the Japanese zero defect philosophy, you are right, but you'll be wrong to conclude that the zero defect philosophy originated in Japan. It did not. The program was started by an American company way back in the 60s, a company that manufactures missiles and rockets. But the difference between the Americans and the Japanese is implementation. In the United States, the zero defect philosophy is applicable or implemented amongst the defense industries, whilst in Japan, it penetrates every sector, every industry in Japan. What does zero defect mean? Put simply, and in another way, it means the pursuit of excellence, quality, reliability. Zero defect does not mean an ideal society, a society that does not make a single mistake, a perfect society. Such a society does not exist. Zero defect does not mean making mistakes and then correcting the mistakes to have a final product that is reliable and acceptable. Zero defect means careful planning, systematic planning to identify all possible problem areas so that these problem areas can be totally eliminated in the production process. When all the bugs or all the errors are taken out, then the chances of making mistake will be minimized. Perhaps I can make myself clearer by giving you an example of the meaning of zero defect. I do not think the Malaysians will mind. After all, it's not their fault. And also, this particular story has been reported on the front page of the New Straits Times on 5th August this year. The Malaysian Navy built 4 vessels, a minesweeper and 3 launchers. These are expensive, sophisticated vessels, very useful in the defense of a country. They built them in Italy. The Italian shipyard is situated behind a bridge, like our Kallang shipyards, behind the viaduct, the flyover. The 4 ships were completed, but they could not be delivered to the Malaysian Navy by the Italian shipbuilder. When they tried to deliver the vessels, they found that the bridge was too low. The builders offered to the villagers to blow up the bridge so that the ships can be freed, and of course build a new bridge thereafter. But the villagers would have none of it. And today, the Malaysian vessels are still trapped behind the bridge. The journalist who wrote the story put it this way: the Italians' skill in shipbuilding was not matched by a clarity of vision. We in Singapore cannot be a society without a clarity of vision. If our vision is not clear, that will spell the end for Singapore. And that is the meaning of zero defect. When we do something, let's have a clear vision of the various processes so that we would not have such a mistake ever made. The product is good, but cannot be delivered. Things change over the time. And for us to look ahead, we have to examine old assumptions to see whether they are relevant to today's situation and to see whether they'll be relevant to future circumstances. Obsolete ideas and practices must be thrown overboard, jettisoned. By way of illustration, let me tell you that 2 of the objectives, or 2 of the 4 objectives of a trade union as defined in our Trade Union Act are objectives which are totally obsolete in today's circumstance. 1 is to restrict trade. In other words, a union exists to practice restrictive measures. 2, to organize and promote strikes or lockouts. These are the objects of a trade union. Without these objects, by definition, by legal definition, the association will not be a trade union. So our trade unions have not in the past few years been legal trade unions. They have not been practicing their objectives. But it is better for our unions to have the right spirit than to follow the law which is obsolete. We are putting things right. I believe the definition will be changed, and a union in the future will have the responsibility not to organize strikes or lockouts, which are self-destructive, but to organize programs which will enhance and improve the welfare of the workers. And this calls for teamwork between management and workers. Lockouts and strikes will not solve anything. You look at the situation in Poland. You know Poland is in deep trouble. It is a society in crisis. The Poles are short of meat, petrol, sugar, butter, matches, and such essentials which Singaporeans take for granted. The Poles or the housewives have to line up to 4 hours just to buy bread. I've read that there's no queue, however, for buying washing machines. So I was rather surprised. Is it because the Poles are very good in producing washing machines? So I read the news article further. There's no queue for washing machines in Poland because they cannot buy soap powder. They are short of soap powder, so what is the point of buying washing machines? The solidarity, the unions can organize strikes, they can organize convoys to block up the streets of Warsaw. But this will not solve anything. This will not produce more meat, more matches, more bread, more soap powder. It is when the unions and the government, the whole country working together, that a country is able to produce all the goods which they require, or to produce goods which can be exported and allow you to buy the goods that you need. The Polish government blames the unions blame the government, one blames the others for creating chaos, inefficiency, but nothing is solved. We can abstract lessons from the Polish crisis. There are many lessons for us. I shall only mention two. One is that the Polish society is totally rigid, inflexible. The bureaucracy is inflexible. The whole communist system of organizing Poland is inflexible. They do not prepare themselves for a new world, for a new situation. Oil price has gone up, but they have not restructured the economy like we have. Have we not restructured our economy, perhaps we'll be short of a few things in Singapore today. So our society is different from Poland. We always prepare ourselves for change, anticipating problems, preparing solutions before the problems come upon us. The second lesson is the lack of effective leadership. In any country, there must be effective leadership. In Poland, the government has lost its effectiveness. No one is in charge. The unions are not in charge, and the government is not in charge. And without effective government or leadership, Poland is collapsing. Iran, which is another example where there is no clear, undisputed, effective leadership. Again, Iran is in the process of breaking up. So we in Singapore must always retain our effectiveness as a people. The first generation leaders and the elders have toiled and sacrificed. They have built and created Singapore. They have produced wealth and saved the wealth for future Singaporeans. We, younger Singaporeans, who were born just either before the Second World War or during the Second World War or just after, have not suffered too much. We have grown on the fruits from the garden built by the first generation leaders and elders. But our parents were not so fortunate. Our parents survived some very difficult times during Japanese occupation on inadequate food. Many survived on tapioca. The older Singaporeans here today will remember those difficult times when they have nothing else to eat but tapioca. Today, young Singaporeans, I believe, do not know what is tapioca. And rightly so, because tapioca is used as feed for animals. They are exported by Thailand to Europe to feed the cattle in Europe. So it is right that our Singaporeans, younger Singaporeans, do not eat tapioca. If we want Singapore to continue as we have done in the past for another 16, 20, 30, 40 years, the younger Singaporeans must take upon themselves to plow, to plant, so that there will be another harvest. If we shirk our responsibility, this will be the last bumper harvest. And you'll be leaving behind a barren desert to our children. And if it ever comes to that, I do not know where we can hide our faces. So it is up to us, the younger Singaporeans, to collectively carry Singapore through the 1990s and into the 21st century. We have to nurture our society as diligently and as wisely as the first generation leaders and elders. I believe we will not shirk our responsibility. And I'm not just referring to the younger Singaporeans who stood on the rostrum this evening. I refer to all younger Singaporeans in Singapore, the younger Singaporeans in the civil service, the younger Singaporeans in the private sector, in the unions, in the CCCs, in the RCs, younger Singaporeans everywhere. The strongest must give a helping hand to the weakest, and the able a helping hand to the less able. In this way, all Singaporeans can collectively make it to the mountaintop. Thank you. Good night.